Brave Moms. I'm Priscilla from Kindred Bravely, and I'm here today with Kristen.
Hi, I'm an RN at Door County Medical Center. I've worked in the birthing center for 20 years, and I've helped a lot of moms through labor, delivery, postpartum, and nursery care.
Kristen was actually my nurse, and we're here today to talk about C-sections.
Around the country, there's reasons for C-sections of varying degrees. Some are planned, some are emergent, some are kind of by choice. Definitely a topic that we need to talk about. I always like to tell parents when I teach the Prepare Childbirth class or if I'm doing any counseling before delivery that the ultimate goal of having a baby is a healthy mom and a healthy baby. It does not matter how they arrive into this world. And I need to remind all moms of that because a lot of people look at it as a failure if they don't have maybe the traditional unmedicated quote unquote natural birth, or if something along the way goes different than their plan. I think it's best to keep an open mind and know that your body's doing the very best it can, but sometimes there are forces beyond our control.
And I think that is so interesting that you say that because I had 2 C-sections. I have 2 babies, healthy, beautiful, perfect babies, thriving babies. And they came into this world both via C-section. My first baby, my daughter, she came via an emergency C-section because I had preeclampsia. The process of like not having your body go into labor and have those hours, you know, to understand that your baby's coming, that you're going through a process, but rather going to C-section, it was strange to me. I'm sure you see a lot of that.
I have. Unfortunately, that sometimes happens. And it's really hard for moms because they haven't had time to mentally or physically prepare. And to be quite honest, it can be hard on babies too. So we really take those things like you have to know and trust your provider that they're doing the best thing possible for you and your baby to keep you both safe. But it can be very scary. And I've seen cases like yours. And you know, you're a brave mama because that has to be very intimidating and overwhelming.
Oh, thank you, Kristen. It is. And I have to say that I came to terms with my C-section, both of them, and I came out of them with a very positive feeling because...
You're a tough woman, though.
Well, thank you. But I have to say it's because my goal, like you're saying, I had a birth plan for both my births, but my main goal was to bring my kids safely. It took me a long time to get pregnant with my first, and my biggest goal was to keep her safe. Once she was out and I had her via C-section, I didn't come out of that experience thinking that was negative at all.
Awesome.
Because my baby was there with me.
I'm so glad you're sharing this. I think more moms need to know that. You know, a good tip, one of the nurses I work with is you have your whole life to be a parent, and people invest so much time and energy on a small portion, albeit at the time seems like forever in a day. And for some ladies that labor process can be, you know, 24 hours, but that's only a very, very small piece of the whole big picture.
And I do want to say that it's so valid, the feeling of, you know, disappointment, I guess, that some moms come out of from a C-section, and that can even lead into a postpartum depression or a trauma because of their birth. It's a very common thing. So I think C-sections can be very tough for moms, especially also because C-section moms sometimes can feel undervalued.
Absolutely.
Because
or
they
a
didn't
failure in some way, or they weren't able to experience the true labor that everyone talks about, you know. Unfortunately, some ladies have to go through all of labor and then also have a C-section, which can be especially problematic. You know, your body is just physically and mentally exhausted. But good point, and I'm glad you're speaking of that. Ladies, moms out there, don't feel that you've done anything wrong. Sometimes these things are out of our control.
In your experience, do you find that lots of C-section moms have a harder time afterwards? I mean, obviously recovery is really hard. I mean, I speak for experience, but how do you see, from like your perspective, the moms that are just had a C-section?
I would say the moms with the first time C-section struggle the most. The second time around, your body knows what to expect, but that could be true of any delivery. But I would say you have a lot of the emotional factors involved with the C-section. And then we had talked off camera about, if it's planned, then not being able to eat or drink ahead of time is really tricky. And then the thing, if it's not planned, then you have that whole, I hate to say, journey of labor that you were enduring. So I see a lot of moms struggle that. I feel like they have self-doubt, they feel that they've done something wrong. And of course you have the added recovery of an incision and an actual surgery, which you can't just jump out of bed when you're done. So we need to take all those factors into consideration. So generally, some moms can feel definitely more discomfort. And it's painful sometimes for them to have baby on their tummy. So you have to be creative with the breastfeeding positioning and things like that.
I remember when my son was born, you were recommending a lot of the football positions for breastfeeding because it was so hard for me to, lift myself up at that point.
Exactly.
And I was constantly with him in that football position, which I thought was super, super helpful.
It's my favorite position, actually.
Do you see that a lot of moms that just had a C-section, in your experience, do you find them to be pretty ready for breastfeeding right away, or does it take a little longer?
I think we've really come a long way. We're trying to do a lot of education prenatally, and especially if it's a planned C-section, which even in the case of first-time moms, we do planned C-sections a lot. I think that is very helpful. But to go in and go with the mindset and make sure you have a good team of support is definitely important. Our goal for all babies is to be at the breast within an hour of delivery. We give you an extra hour for a C-section, but you can still do the skin-to-skin contact. But I think breastfeeding is definitely something that you can absolutely do in the recovery room. As long as mom's feeling okay, but sometimes there's that nausea after delivery, and those other side effects that can interfere.
With me, one thing that I found super helpful that you guys did for me right after my C-section was to set up the pump, the pumping machine, and that hospital grade pumping machine. And even though I wasn't out of bed yet, I was stuck in bed. But I was able to start pumping and telling my body,
stimulate.
Telling my body, okay, the baby's out, time to produce.
Now to do a thing.
And it was super helpful.
A very great tool.
And one last thing that I want to talk to you about is about how to make C-sections, right? A little bit more, I would say, human, or have that sort of human contact, because this was one of the things that I find that made a huge difference for my C-sections. I had my babies on me right away, both times, and I had my baby on my breasts, both of them, right away as well. And I was able to do skin to skin with them right away, and when I couldn't because I was in recovery, my husband was able to take them and then do skin to skin.
Perfect.
I think that there is this stigma about C-sections that it's just a very sterile process.
Absolutely.
Because of surgery, obviously we have to be a little bit more careful. But in your opinion, how do you think we can move from this sort of like sterile, surgery-like environment into a more caring and loving, process of labor as well?
Actually, there is a process, and it's by patient's request, but we were on quite a trend a few years ago, and they're called gentle C-sections.
There you go.
And what they actually do is, as soon as baby's delivered, the drape is lowered, and mom can see more clearly. Already right now we've come so far because we have dads in the operating room too and everything, and we're really promoting that skin to skin, but that gentle C-section. There are also the availability, and this would be based on your provider, but they have a clear drape. Now sometimes maybe moms wouldn't want to see that, and I have had moms say if they look up in the light in the correct angle, they can see the reflection of the whole process, which can be intimidating when it's you and they're operating. But definitely, we're really trying to make it more. Used to be as soon as those babies were delivered, we'd whisk them to the nursery, and now we have them stay in the operating room with mom while the surgery is completed. I think it's really important.
I think so too.
Those babies need that.
Yeah, and that could avoid so much mental
Trauma.
health issue for moms.
I agree. And having dads step in, I've had a lot of dads do that, and we tell them get skin to skin. Just take your shirt off, whatever you need to do, or wear a button-down shirt so the baby can get your skin too, because baby knows dad's voice just as well as mom's almost.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Kristen,
My
about
pleasure.
C-section, and
Thanks for having me.
and how, and empowering moms who have had C-sections.
Yeah.
I'm, me being one of them.
Sure.
I think that I had wonderful experiences, even though it wasn't my initial plan.
Right.
But I did find a way to cope with how it went, and thankfully my babies are here, and that's all that matters to me.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being so kind and talking to us today.
My pleasure. I do want to add one thing, that after delivery, it's really important no matter how you deliver, but especially with the C-section, whatever doubts and feelings you have, talk to someone about it. Talk to your provider, talk to your spouse, talk to your nurse. A lot of times, the physician can go in and explain why this was necessary. And in the heat of the moment, or right prior to, if things are moving quickly, you may not fully understand, but let them talk to you to the next day and explain, baby was having trouble, or like you understand your blood pressure was dangerously high. Sometimes we don't know right away and we just have to move. So just communicate is the key. It will, maybe mom's thinking it was something wrong with her, and it could have not been,
Absolutely. The mom did nothing wrong. It's just, it's just the process.
That's the circumstance.
Awesome.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure, my pleasure.
And we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.